Beginning our Daf, Mesechta Kesuvos Daf Chaf Aleph, we begin in the bottom line of Chav and Beis. We begin the Gemara on explaining the previous mission again, which is continuing this theme regarding Kim Shtaris, regarding the witnesses who have authenticated the document by validating their signatures, regarding can they now go ahead and invalidate, and also in regards to in general, what is the nemanis of their testimony regarding their own signatures. Cheers, corresponds to Pasuk and Cheskel 20 Daf Chaim. Is joining for today's daf. So the discussing today's daf are, as we mentioned, it's important that we keep in mind these dafim are Kim Shtaris, which is, although biblically really, whenever you have a document, it's as if it was verified already in the court, but rabbinically they require you to validate the document because they're concerned maybe it was forged, what's called ziyuf. So Kim Shtaris can be performed in three ways. One is idea Eidim HaChasumim, if the undersigned Eidim themselves testify, these are our signatures. Two, idea Eidim if other Eidim testify. And three, idea Ksaviyot Nitzmakum Acher, if you compare the signatures to other documents that were already had Urim and they went and they were Machzikit. Those are three ways of doing Kim Shtaris. Now, once Bezdin has performed Kim Shtaris, the Dayanim sign a written statement affixed to the shtar known as a henpik or a shatara, from the word of strengthening, in which they confirm the kiyum of the shtar. The concept at the end of the daf is regarding to the halach of Eined Nasadai. Biblically, a witness cannot become one of the judges, but rabbinically, as we'll see, when it comes to Kim Shtaris, an aid could become a dain. So we begin the card daf. Our Mishnah, we had mentioned, continued with the theme of the previous Mishnah is regarding Kim Shtaris by the Eidim HaChasumim. So the opening case of the Mishnah was essentially each one of the two Dayanim came to court and they said, look, this is my signature and that's his signature, and they also said that's my signature and that's his signature. So there everyone agreed in the Mishnah Real Naman, because you have two witnesses on each signature, because each one of the witnesses is verifying his signature and the other person's signature. But we had a machlekes in this second case of the Mishnah. Let's say each one just said Zek Savyadi. There's Reuben and Shimon. Reuben says, look, this is my signature. I don't know about anyone else's. And Shimon says, this is my signature. So we had a machlekes. Rebbe said, Rebbe said that each one, Reuben and Shimon, needs Levi to join with both of them, so that you have two witnesses, two Eidim, on each one of the signatures, because each one of them needs a certificate. And the Chacham said, no, it's enough to have each guy saying it's my own signature. Why? Because as we can explain the Gemara, according to the Chachamim, the testimony that they're saying is on the monies, not on their own signatures. So you have two people saying that what's written in this document is true. So I don't need two witnesses on each signature. These witnesses are saying now that what we have written over here was us, and now their two witnesses are essentially saying what's this loan here is true. So each one, if they're saying it's my signature, are essentially saying what's here is true. So we have two witnesses on what's inside. That's Malchig's Rebbe and the Chacham. So that's what the Gemara starts and explains. Kishatim Tzalem is the bottom line of Chav and Beis. So when you will understand the end of the depth of the machlekes of the Rebbe and the Chacham, when you're going to say is as well. The Divrei Rebbe, according to Rebbe, he holds as you get down Chaf Alf and Aleph, Al Ksav Yodam Heimeidin. What are they testifying, these witnesses, when they're coming regarding the document in court? When they're validating the document in Bezdin, they're testifying on their signatures. So therefore, you need to have two witnesses on every single signature. So according to Rebbe, you need to have another person with him, because only two Eidim we believe. And how do we know this is your signature? You're saying you're one. You need another person. Whereas to the words of the Chachamim, no almana shebishtarhim Eidim. They're testifying on the monies in the document. We saw this loan and we signed. We're those people that signed. So therefore it's enough with just two people. You don't need that each one of them should have to testify on the other person's signature, because those two are coming to court and saying we're the ones that signed, and now therefore it's essentially like they're saying that we saw this loan. It's an oral verification of what they had written already, let's say 5 years ago. So therefore that's enough with the two Eidim themselves. We don't need to have two on each one of those signatures. So the Gemara says that's so obvious. The Gemara asks Pshita, obvious. Why did I need the Gemara to tell me this Keshatim Salayma? Isn't that obvious from the Mishnah that was the machlekes? So the Gemara says no. What would you say? That Rebbe Svukim Mesafkei, that actually Rebbe was in doubt. If aksav yadam, if it's on their signatures that we need them to testify. That's what Himeidim, that's where they're testifying, like the way we understood in the halacha, the Mishnah. And therefore, that's why Rebbe said, you need to have two, you have to have another person to join them, because you need two Eidim on each signature. Or maybe, he wasn't sure. Or maybe they're testifying regarding the money, the loan, the debt that's in the document. And because maybe it's on their signatures, that's why he required to have two for every single signature. But not that he necessarily knew that to be definitively the case. And says the Gemara, what's the nafkamina? What's the difference if he was in doubt or he was definite regarding the two signatures on the document? There is going to be a difference. Is heichad mischad minay. If one of the witnesses died, if libayi shnayim min hashuk l'hoyerav, if you can require two people from the market, meaning two random people, to come and testify, and that is, this remaining guy is not valid to testify on his own signature and on his friend's signature, and to just combine one person with him, that they should testify on both of them, because that should be appropriate. Why not? If the whole idea was to have two witnesses on each signature, why can't he join with one guy from the shuk and say, look, come and testify with me on mine, and me and you will testify together on Shimon's. That's what would be, if Rebbe was definite regarding this halacha of aksav yodam himeidim, all you would really need if one of the witnesses dies to have one guy from the shuk, some other guy, Levi, who recognizes Reuben's and Shimon's, and great, Reuben and Levi will join together to testify on Reuben's and on Shimon's. No, but if he was mesupik, you would need two people to come from the shuk. Why? So the Gemara explains. The im came because if that would be the case, that maybe that if Rebbe wasn't doubt, if maybe they're testifying regarding the monies in the document, that's what they're testifying. So when this Reuben says, oh, this is my signature, automatically half of the monies are being collected based on this is my signature. Because again, according to the Rabbanim, you don't have to combine anyone else with. Why not? Because two witnesses are testifying regarding the monies. So each person says Zeg Sab Yadi, that works. So now this Reuben is already collecting, let's say that it says $100 loan in the document. $50 of it, so to speak, was already collected by Reuben by saying this is my handwriting. Now, the reason for that is because even if that Levi from the market will testify on Reuben's signature, that doesn't make a difference because he doesn't need Levi. Because like the Chacham explained, that you're believed to say this is your Ksav Yadi, and you just combine with the other aid to collect the other half. Now the problem is when he's now going to combine with that Levi, that person from the marketplace, to testify on Shimon who died's signature, he's collecting now another quarter of the monies because him and Levi together are needed to verify Shimon's signature. Shimon himself could just say it's my signature, but he's dead. So how do we know there's Shimon's signature? You can't have one person saying, because that one person is not saying, I saw the loan. It's Shimon saw the loan. Reuben could say, this is my signature, which according to the Chachamim, it's a little bit complex, but according to the Chachamim, you're testifying on the monies. So when I say this is my signature, essentially I'm saying, hey, I saw the loan. So you could do that with the other guy, and the two of you together are saying we saw the loan. So Reuben, when he says Zeg Sav Yadi, that works, but Shimon's not around. So for Shimon, the only thing you could do, essentially, is to authenticate the signature. It's like you do Tchisa Mason. When you're both saying, we know Shimon's signature, it's like Shimon saying, and I saw the loan. Because he signed it, we just don't know Shimon's signature. So if you have Levi's not enough to authenticate his 1/8. So you need Reuben with him. Ooh, now what happens is essentially it's like 3/4, because again, it's like Reuben and Levi together are Tchisa Mason and Shimon. Them together are doing Shimon. So that'll be 3/4 of the document being collected by Reuben. That's a problem. Comes out kanafik that you're collecting all the money, niche river the remainder minus a quarter of the monies, which is 3/4, of puma de chatzada, based on the testimony of one witness of that Reuben. Now, we need a pi shnaim edim yakum davar, which means to say that half on one and half from the other one statement. Here, you would be collecting 3/4 and 1/4. So what comes out is if Rebbe was misopik, again, there's a little bit conflict. It's all the Gemara saying why he needed to tell me. It was so obvious that this is machlekes Rebbe Chachamim. Why did I need you to tell me that Rebbe told me that you testified Miksav Yadayim and according to the comments on the Manish B'Shar? Well, I needed to tell you that because maybe I would have said that Rebbe wasn't definite. Maybe Rebbe was only misopik. And in our Mishnah, he was going stringently and saying that no, Chachamim. It's not enough to say Zek Sav Yodi v'Zek Sav Yodi. No. You need to have another person to combine with them. Why? Because he wasn't sure. Maybe the halacha is Al Ksav Yodi Me'edim. If Ksav Yodi Me'edim, it's not enough for you to say this is your signature. You need 2 witnesses on each signature. But maybe the Hachal Chumrah, maybe he would say that in the other case you also have to go stringently, meaning where the 2 witnesses are still alive. So like we said in the Mishnah, then we go stringently when we say that they're testifying on their signatures. And you need to have 2 witnesses in every single signature. But when one of them dies, maybe Rebbe would go Chumrah the other way, and he would say, no, it's not enough to get 1 person from the shuk. You need to get 2 people from the shuk. One to testify on the on the signature of the one who died, and one to testify on the one that died and the one that's living. Because if it'd be obvious to us that they're testifying on their handwritings, it actually would be enough with one from the shuk who should testify on the 2 signatures, and the living one will testify also on the 2 signatures. And we're not saying in that case that all the monies minus a quarter will be collected based on Reuben, because he also needs the one from the shuk to testify on the signature. That's the fundamental difference. When you're having that other person, according to Rebbe, when you have that other person, you need him to help you on your signature. It's not like the way we explained according to the Rabbanan that even if the other one's testifying with you, it's not really helping, because according to Chum, you testify on the Manish of the Shtar. So when I say Zek Sab Yadi, I'm essentially collecting half the document. Even if you say you help me Zek Sab, I don't need your help. According to Rabbi, no, you do need, because your own signature, you're not valid to say Zek Sab Yadi, because you need 2 witnesses on each signature.
Why can't they just re-sign?
Who?
We'll see if it's their signature.
One is dead.
Oh no, the other 2. Whether they're all verifying on their signatures.
You're saying in general. You're saying when you have 2 people saying that this is our signature. So what? To re-sign on what?
To show that that's his.
That's their signature. I wonder if you could be Messiah if they could forge. I mean, that's a technical question. But why is that better than them testifying? Saying according to the Chachamim that says that you can't, according to Rebbe, that you have to be Mitzvah someone else. Why can't you just sign? And we'll see. But we're going to see something like that actually very shortly. The Gemara is going to say something similar to that actually. The Gemara is going to do something like that.
It could open a door for people who forge.
Right. Exactly, right. So that's what the Gemara.
It's pretty obvious when they sign it.
Right. But even that, what is that? The Gemara is going to show how that is one of the other ways of verification. But what does it help when you're writing it? But then we have to compare the writings. That's a different way of verification. So I'm saying that might be an option, but it's a very different approach. But now that we're not sure, that maybe on the monies and the documents they're testifying, and therefore he is believed on his own signature, and he doesn't need anyone to combine with him, and we also need him to testify in the signature of the one who died. That's problematic because you're going to have 3/4 being collected based on what he's saying if you don't have 2 from the marketplace, because you don't need, meaning that he's not going to need that to testify on the dead person. So Kamash Malon, that's what the Gemara is telling us. The Chiddush was the Rebbe Nifshad Pshitale, that no, Rebbe said it definitively, that it's enough with 1 from the marketplace and that both of them should testify on both of them, and that's going to be Bein Lakula, whether as a leniency, like over here, where according to the Rabbanan, that you need to have 2 from the marketplace, that to testify on the dead man's signature, and this guy will testify only on his own signature, and Rebbe saying that no, you don't need 2, you only need 1, and Bein Lachum, whether as a stringency, as you said in the Mishnah, that according to Rebbe, you need to have someone else to be mitzaref with each witness when he says Zek Sab Yadi. You need to have Levi to work with Reuben and with Shimon. No, you only need them. They could say their own Zek Sab Yadi. So comes out that we needed to tell you this is their machlekes, to tell you not that Rebbe was mesup, because we could have thought to say that in our Mishnah is only saying l'chumra one way because he wasn't sure which way it is. Is it aksav yadam or is it amano hema idim? So in the Mishnah he's going l'chumra, but maybe in the case of when one of them does, he'd also say l'chumra, and he would say, oh no, you need to have two minashuk the way the chacham say. So saying that no, Rebbe definitively said it, that in this case he actually would be l'kula, although in our Mishnah is l'chumra, he would say no, that you only need echad minashuk l'hoydalav because it's not 3/4 being collected by him because he needs that other person, that one lady, to help him out with his own signature too. So therefore, that was important to say. As that the Amr of Yehuda Murad, that he says Shnai Machasum al Ashtar. He says this case when two witnesses are signed on the document, the Meis Echmem, one of them dies, so Shimon dies, so Tzricha. So according to the Chachamim, you need to have Shnai min Ashuk l'hoydalav. You need to have two from the marketplace to testify, and because if not, if there was only one from the marketplace, you would have 3/4 being collected by Reuben, because Reuben would be testifying on his own signature and together with this lady in Shimon's signature. So that you need to have two for the marketplace to help Reuben and Shimon. And Bezu, Rebbe L'Kula, Rabban L'Chumra. This is a case where Rebbe, although in the Mishnah is L'Chumra, here he's lenient and the Rabban L'Chumra. Because according to Rebbe, you only need one from the Shuk. Now the Gemara asked the question that was brought up before. V'ilek, what do you do if you don't have two people recognize this Shimon, the one who died, signature? Elachad, only one person, and the living witness also recognizes. What's the halacha? What should you do? Because we said according to Rabban, you need two minashuk, and only one guy recognizes. What can you do? So Abai. So Abai says similar to what was just brought up before. Lichtayv, let Reuven, the remaining living witness, let him write chasimas yodei achaspa. Let him write his signature on the earthenware shard, and let him throw it into the court, and then let the judges go and take it and compare it to the signature on the document. And then the court will verify the document from that earthenware shard. Now Reuven doesn't have to anymore testify on his signature because it's from one of the other two ways of kimishtaros, which is comparing it to another authenticated signature from a different source. Okay, great. Now Reuven and Levi are going to go and now they can together testify on Shimon's signature. So it comes out only half the edus, not 3/4, only half is being done by Reuven because his signature is being done from some other source, some other external source. So you're not collecting more than half from Reuven, because Reuven actually is only together with Levi verifying Shimon's signature. So it's only whatever you would call that, but it's definitely not more than half what Reuven's doing, and therefore that would be a way around that problem if you only have one person recognizing Shimon's signature, not two. But the Gemara does point out, parenthetically, that v'davka chaspa, that this idea that we said what you should do is that sign and throw it into the court and let them verify on their own without you, is only on the earthenware shard. A megil teloi, but don't write it on the scroll. Why? Because maybe some of these, these vagrants are hanging around the bezin, some cool air conditioning with the benches over there, the rabbis, they don't mind, and some unscrupulous individuals going to find your handwriting on a piece of paper, because of ilovei, my boy, and he's going to write on top of your signature whatever he wants to. So on top of your signature, he's going to write that me, the undersigned, I borrowed $10 million from Moshe the Shlepper, and he's going to write, I am that person who's on the bottom, and I borrowed from that person, because he has your signature on the bottom. And it's not, we learned in the Baba Basa, it says that would be effective to a certain extent. If let's say someone produces in court your handwriting, that he owes him money. So you could collect from the available assets of that person. Now, Rashi points out you cannot collect from the collateral, from the liens, from Shabadim, because the words doesn't get out when it wasn't signed with witnesses, but you could collect from his available assets. So therefore, it says the Gemara, although you do this idea about writing your signature, but do it on the chas, but don't do it on the scroll, because some guy is just going to write whatever he wants on top of it, and he can collect from you whatever's available. Now, concluding this discussion from Halacha by Mishnah, Amar Yehuda Mishmul, since Halacha is Kedivra Chachamim, The halacha like the chacham that you don't have to combine another person. It's enough for each one saying zek sav yodim, which we explained already in the Gemara. What that means to say is because they're testifying amana shabashtar on the monies. They don't need two witnesses on each signature. So the Gemara asks Pshita, where does Shmuel come to teach us? We all know when there's an individual, the Rebbe and the Rabbim, you go like the Rabbim, so of course halacha like chacham. Says the Gemara Maudatem, what would you say? Just like halacha kerebi mechabeiroi, we know one of the Talmudic dictums is that halacha is like Rebbe when he disputes his colleague. So I would thought to say that vafila mechabeiroi, even from his colleagues, even from the Rabbim, Kamash Malon, that's a come to tell you that no, the halacha is like the chacham. Now the Gemara, however, asks, and the siman, the mnemonic is noch, nod, and chad, which literally would say stationary, moving, and one, but it really refers to the names of the Amaron. Amalei Rav Chinna bar Chia le Rabbi Yehuda, V'amalei some say Rav Huna bar Yehuda le Rabbi Yehuda, some say V'amalei Rav Chia bar Yehuda le Rabbi Yehuda. Either way, the question is, the Mira of Shmuel Hachi, did Shmuel really say this, that the halacha is like the Chachamim? But, who started the nothing there was a certain document that was produced in the coming out of the courts of the master of Shmuel, meaning that they verified it in his court. And it said like this, in the hempik. The hempik is what the judges write. So it's like the authorization of the document. So it's written like this. The judges wrote, when Rav An Bachia came, and he testified on his signature, and he also testified on the signature that was with him. Who's the other signature of Rav Chana bar Rabba? Now, with us, Rav Chana bar Rabba, when he came, he testified on his signature, but the Chadime and the signature that was with him, who's that? So now that we have each witness verifying his own signature and the other ones, so we authorize this, we verify this as it's appropriate. Now, one thing is, we see that obviously that Shmuel's court held like Rebbe, where you have to say the Zeg Sav Yadi, and for Zeg Sav Yadi Shechaver. You need another person, you need two people on each signature. How could Shmuel say Allah like Chacham that you don't? But in his own court, they're saying like Rebbe. So Malay, so he said to him, "Who started the Yasmin?" Interesting answer the Gemara gives. That document that you say had each witness verifying his own and another signature was specifically a document of the orphans, which you have to make sure that it's taking care of their needs. Now, so what does that mean? Because Shmuel was concerned that if he's not going to write more than just that each witness testified on his own handwriting, maybe when the orphans are going to try to collect their document in a court, maybe their court, you have to be concerned, Lebezin Toyin, maybe their court is going to make an error. And they're going to say, halacha is like Rebbe. And they're going to say, nope, sorry, it's not a valid kiyum. Because you know, halacha like Rebbe mechabei ra'i, maybe they're going to think it's even mechabei rav. They're going to say, it's not enough to have just each witness verified. This hempeg is not good. You have to have authorized that each one testify on the other one's signature too. Now the reason is because B'Sava Shmuel held, maybe there are some who hold in general, yes, halacha like Rebbe only when he disagrees with a singular colleague, not with a plural, with the chachamim, but maybe they would think of maybe over here they're going to think even from the colleagues, and maybe they'll make such a mistake. So Shmuel thought, look, I'll make it, I'll be extra careful that the orphans don't lose out, and therefore we'll do it even like Rebbe. But not that Shmuel held like that, because Shmuel held like the Rabbana. He was concerned that maybe there's going to be another court that's going to make the mistake, and therefore that's why he did it. So it's not a question on Shmuel's opinion. Now, continuing on this halacha about kiyum shtaris, about verifying the documents. Another teaching from Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. So, if you have a document that was written on it a hempik, which the hempik is the verification of this document, that you have that the stempel, you have that nice signet, the seal from the badats, and they sign, the judges sign on the hempik. Now, at a later point in time, when this lender comes to collect with this authorized document, the borrower contests, and he says that this whole thing is forged. He says not only the witness is forged and the document is forged, the judge's signatures are forged. The whole thing is a forgery. So on that says Shmuel, if let's say you have the 8, one of the witnesses of the document comes and testifies, "What do you mean forged? That is my signature on the document." and Vidayin. You have one of the judges comes along with the Vasa Board, he comes and also they subpoena him, and he testifies, this is my signature as the Dayan. Says Shmuel, mitzdarfen. The aid and the Dayan could combine to validate and authenticate this document that it's kosher. It says, wow, kama aliyah hashmaita, wow, how beautiful is this teaching. To which Amar Rabba says, my mal Yusuf, what's so great about it? What do you mean? It doesn't make sense. What the witness is testifying, look at Masa Dayana. That's not what the judge is testifying. And what the judge was testifying, look at Masa Sahada, the witness not testifying. Why? Because if you recall the discussion we had just before on this Amid, the witnesses of the document, we paskin like the Rabbana. What is the testimony? What is the signature of the witness? It's regarding the money in the document. So when the witness comes along and he says, oh, Zeg Sav Yadi, we said it's not a verification of the signature, it's a verification of the monies in the document that I saw this. The judge is not talking about, he didn't see the loan. All he's testifying is that in front of us this was verified. So how could you combine the aid and the dayan? They're talking about very different things. You have on each element one person and not two people. So rather, says the Gemara, not like this halacha. Rami Cheskel, who was the brother of Rabbi Yehuda, who said over this teaching name of Shmuel that we're finding difficult, he says, don't pay any attention to these rules. The Kail Yehuda Achi that my brother Yehuda put together, which made the Shmuel name of Shmuel. It's not an appropriate halacha. It's not true. You can't have this aid and this dayan combined. A similar story, as we can have at Beis, Ikla Rab Nai, he came, who was a chud of Chibra Abba, Lemizman Shumshimi, to go ahead and buy sesame seeds. He's in the shuk, and he said, this is what Shmuel says. Eid v'dayim mitzdarfen. A judge and the witness could combine to be two witnesses to verify the document. So Amar Mema says, wow, kama al yehot shmaita, they're waiting online to buy the sesame seeds. Says, wow, unbelievable teaching. Because your maternal grandfather, your mother's father, who was Rami Bachama, which we just had this story on Amanal, that he praised it, you're also going to do the same thing in praising it? Rav already refuted this teaching, and he said that no, it's very different. The aid is saying, and the daim that we cannot combine the two of them. Now, continue on this theme regarding Kim Shtaris. So Amar Rav Safra, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Bashmul, Bamarta, Amar Rav Huna. Amar, some say it was Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Shleisha Shiyash. If you have three people that are sitting as a court, the kindness ashtar, to validate a document, without the testimony of the witnesses testifying on their signatures, because the judges themselves recognize the signatures. So you have Shnayim Akim Chasimis De Edim, so you have the court sitting there going through all the documents that they got today, and they have this plaintiff coming with his document. The judge will look and say, oh, this is Moshe Shmuel. Of course, two of the judges recognize the signature, and the third judge doesn't recognize the signature. He's always in the base medrash, he doesn't know anything about anyone's signature. So says the Gemara the following halacha: Ad shalei chasmu, before the two signed on the handprint, before they signed that we recognize and we're going to verify this document that it's kosher, me'idin befanav, they could testify in front of the third guy. He's the one that's always in the mismatch, doesn't know anything. These two judges could testify that this is the handwriting of the undersigned, and then b'chaisim. So then the third judge could sign with them on what they write, which they write a sharnoi, b'kaimnu, l'shtara dinon, b'moisat law. We validated, we authenticated this document in the presence of three judges, the chasim yizod, that we know and we can verify that this is the signature of these witnesses. They all could sign that, because two of them knew it, and they could both be witnesses in front of the third judge. Beryl said, oh, and he could also verify because he had two witnesses that he believed, and now they could sign. But Mishachas, let's say Reuben and Shimon already signed. They say, oh, of course we know. Reuben signs his beautiful signature, whatever this and that, and Shimon signs. And now it comes to Beryl. But says, what's Shabbat? I don't know who this guy, how am I supposed to know? So then they cannot now say, oh, you didn't know who he is? You didn't know? Everyone knows. Okay, me and Shimon will testify in front of you. No. then you can't. Why? Because comes out that the first signatures were false. Because it wasn't b'maisav tlasa haviyadinan. When they signed of that statement, that was false. Because it wasn't the three of us knew and we are authenticating it. Because when Reuben and Shimon signed, Beryl didn't know about this. So that's not gonna, it's too late for them to testify in front of Beryl. So it only works if they testify before they sign. But the problem is, the Gemara says, Omi kasvina?
Why is it too late? Because they're shakra?
Yeah, because sheker. It's false, the statement that they signed on.
No, I understand it's false. So let's say you dismiss it, you avoid it.
Avoid what? You would have to write it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could write it over, but that document is not, you can't use that hemp
No,
again.
so can they certify? Can they
Yeah, you do a new certification. You want to know if it's on the document.
They can do the testimony again.
Yeah, and then, right, so that's actually what the Gemara's next question is. The Gemara says, forget about that they signed. Umi kazvinan? You think you can even write that asharta the day before that they went and they verified in front of the three that they're going to write? Oh, but how could you even write it? But Vamara Papin prayed that up. He says, "Hi asharta the daina." This asharta, which is the hempik, the word asharta is just like v'yasha kachacha. It's like a strengthening, where they strengthen the document and they write a shanahi. If it was denichted, it was just written. Before the witnesses went and verified their signatures, meaning if the witnesses did not verify their signature and the judges already wrote, oh, in the presence of three, we had this document produced and we testified the undersigned that we had these witnesses who verified their signature and we're verifying it. If they wrote this even before the witnesses testified, psula, it's invalid. The mischazik is shikr because it looks like it's false. Because even the writing was done when no one even testified yet. So here, even if let's say he said that they testified in front of Beryl before anyone signed, but how do you even write it in the first place? So the Gemara said, no, Amy, right, you have to amend the teaching. Actually, Kesuvos, if they didn't even write the hempik yet, then they could testify to them, and then they could sign. Kesuvos, if they already wrote it, too late, then you cannot testify in front of them and sign because it looks like sheker from the fact that you wrote this and we didn't even know this yet. How could you even write this? It's only when everyone knew. Usually it's when two witnesses testify. Here the Reuben shouldn't know themselves. But Beryl's also got to know it before you even write it because it's mischazik shikr. So the Gemara says, Shema minat las. So we learn that from this teaching, we learn that three different halachas. What do we learn now? Shema minat las, first of all, we learn that Eid Nasadayin, that a witness can become a judge. Because here we have two of the judges are testifying on the signatures and then they're sitting as a court. So two of the people are witnesses becoming a judge.
I want to hear about Mamonis.
Oh, so we're going to see regarding that. Yes, I'm saying we see all by Mamonis regarding capital punishment. How do you know that? What are you saying? You're saying you're asking, or you're saying?
Just
What?
pashtus.
You're just saying that the witnesses cannot become judges. Bishma mina, and we also can infer that Yonan hamakidim chasimis idei edim. If you have judges who recognize the signatures of the witnesses, we don't need the witnesses to testify in front of them because they know this, the signatures. You don't need witnesses to verify. And the third thing you learn out of Shema Minah, that if you have judges who don't recognize the signatures of the witnesses, that you have to go ahead and testify in front of every single judge. Meaning that if, let's say, the witnesses had testified in front of two of the judges, the third judge cannot sign because, which Trace explains, you would have thought to say that since, let's say, witnesses testified in front of two, the third one could rely on the other two, even though they didn't testify in front of him. No, because over here, the two needed to testify in front of the third one, even though they knew their signatures. So you see that the witnesses have to testify in front of every one of the judges, that they all have to hear that these are our signatures, that everyone knows this, and that they can then sign as follows. Those are the three things we can infer from this teaching. But Rashi asks on these three inferences. It says, Bishlam Eid Nasadayin Shalemina. I understand that you can infer from this that a witness can become a judge, because that's clearly the story. Two of these judges first testified on the Chasimis Yadayim in front of the third guy, and then they went and they sat as judges. But regarding the other two teachings, regarding the judges who recognize the signatures of the witnesses, then you told me you don't have to testify in front of them, because that's actually what happened. No one's testifying in front of them. If anything, they're testifying in front of the third judge, Beryl. No, how do you know that? Maybe I would tell you that you do need that there should be testimony. Because if, let's say, all three judges knew the signature, you would want to infer, okay, no one has to say anything, just go ahead and make the hempik. No. Maybe that the testimony is only through someone who's saying something. Here it's different. Because someone is saying something when they're testifying in front of the third judge who doesn't recognize. But maybe you would need to have a Haggadas Edus of the shtar to certify it. Maybe it wouldn't be enough without, but here the two are saying in front of the third one. And also regarding the third halacha, he said that if there's a judge that doesn't recognize the signature of the witnesses, we said that, and then the witnesses have to testify in front of every single judge. Because you see over here that the two did it by the third. No. In general, you don't have to testify in front of every one of the judges. Here it's different, and it's related to the second question. Because then, no one's going to be saying any testimony at all. So that's why the two had to do in front of the third. Simply because you have to have Haggadas Edus. But maybe, if let's say there was witnesses themselves, maybe it would be enough in front of the two or the three. Maybe you wouldn't have to do in front of the three. So therefore, he doesn't like the two other inferences. He says not necessarily so. The same question relates to the second and the third point. Maybe it's because you need a Haggadas Edus. And therefore, the two have to say in front of the third one. But not necessarily where they have those two different shmaminas. Now, Yosef Rabbi Shmaita, he was sitting and he was saying over this teaching, that a witness can become a judge. That relates to your point where you're talking about regarding capital punishment. Even regarding mumminess, it's not necessarily even the case. As the Gemara says, Eitzvir of Safal Rabba. Safal asked Rabba from a Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Mishnah says, Ru'uhu Shleisha. This is regarding the Eidus HaChodesh, regarding testimony of that the new moon was here and that we can make Rosh Chodesh. So if three people saw the new moon, they ain't bezin, and it's actually they're from the Sanhedrin that are the ones who Mekadosh the Chodesh, and they happen to be taking a shpatzir, they're talking and learning, they look up and say, oh, look at that, the new moon. So what should they do? Yamdu Shnayim, let two people stand up to be the witnesses, which the Gemara over there Roshana asks, what do you mean? Why do you need to have Eidus? What's called hearing shouldn't be any more than seeing. Seeing is believing, so why do you need to have Eidus for? So the Gemara explains where they saw the moon at nighttime. So therefore, if no one testifies in the morning, what are they saying Mekudesh on? Because you can't be Mekadosh at nighttime, it has to be by the daytime when the Bezin is in service. And at that point, what are we saying Mekudesh on? There's nothing here, there's no Re'iyah now, we need something right now, which would be the Shmiya. So therefore, that's why you have two of them stand up. And then they bring from their friends, from their colleagues to go next to that third person who will be from the judges. They testify in front of them. They say the month is sanctified, it's sanctified. The reason for that is because the reason why they can't just have the third guy sitting by himself, because you can't have an individual die and be Mekadosh himself at the Chodesh by himself. Fine. That's the halacha Mishnah of Seth Rishon. So on that, as for Safra to Rabba, these are you entertain to say, like the first inference that you made from that brisa that we had, which the second two we had difficulties with. But the first one that you seem to say is obvious, the Eid Nasadayim, because here you're having the two who are telling the third regarding the signature that you recognize, because the Eid could become, the two witnesses could become judges. If that's the case, Lomli Kuli Hai. So why do you, the Mishnah Rishon is saying too much? Leisu b'duchtayu. Why do you need to have, you said, okay, you can't have one judge making Kiddush HaChodesh. So you're saying let two of the three stand up, say witnesses, and they bring from their friends to fill the quota of how many judges. Why? Let them, after they testify from the third person, sit down with a couch, and then you'll have a bezin of three, the Mekadosh HaChodesh, because Eid Nasadayin, you told me a witness can become a judge. So on that, Rabbi responds and says, you're right. I had the same question. I asked it to Rabbi Yitzchak Shmuel Martin. Now, he also had this difficulty. So Rabbi Yitzchak, he went with Rav Huna. Because you have to have the rabbi's rabbi, and then Rav Huna, he went l'chi barav, and this went up the chain, l'chi barav l'rav. He said to them, leave alone the Mishnah said for Hashem, testimony regarding the new month, which that's the Raisa, that's biblical, whereas Vikim Shtaris is only Derabanan. So as Taisa explains, regarding biblical law, of course, even regarding monetary law, forget about capital punishment, an aid does not become a dying. Now, the reason why aid does not become a dying is because you need to have testimony in front of the judges, the way the Rashbam explains, where it says, these are the witnesses, lefnei Hashem, those are the judges. So you need to have a Haggadah Eidus. So of course regarding that halacha Eidus HaChodesh, you can't have the two testify and then sit down because no Eid Nasadai. But regarding Kiyum Shtaris with rabbinic halacha, there the rabbis allowed that yes, an aid can become a dayan, and therefore you could have those two testifying on the third judge, and then they could all go ahead and sign together. Now, regarding what we said before, a similar idea, let's say three judges are sitting down to authenticate a document, and what happens is that there's rumors regarding one of the judges that he's invalid to be a judge. So on that, if it's actually chasmu, if the other two judges didn't yet sign on the asharta, on the hempik, on the verification, then those two judges could testify on the third judge. What are you talking about? Is a kasha, is an upstanding tzaddik, and then they could all sign. But if the other two, the judges already signed, now it's already negeya b'davar, because it's embarrassing for them that they sat with this rat. This is together on the court, on the judge. It's guilty by association. So now they can't testify on him that he's valid, and then he could sign because you're negeya b'davar. So it's similar to like we said before the signing or after the signing, but for different reasons. Here we're saying that that would be already too late. So the Gemara says, wait a second, what's the case? Toma iridamai. When these people, when rumors were coming out regarding the third dying, what were they saying? Iridagazlan nusa. This is Rashi explains it, so Yotei explains it differently. But if it's iridagazlan nusa, which is that they were saying that this guy's a gazlan, this guy's a robber, this guy. Now, when the other two judges say he's not a gazlan, as a contender of Bezim and Aleph, trey between him. So it's essentially 2 against 2. Meaning you have two people saying that he's a gazlan. These two judges saying he's not a gazlan. That wouldn't validate, because the Gemara explains in later on Chavav and Aleph, if you're saying it was Irur is not less than 2 people. So that must be there's 2 people saying they're a gazlan, and then there's 2 judges saying he's not a gazlan. So what does it help to say that they'll testify before they signed that he's not a gazlan? That still won't validate him, because it's still a suffix. It's trey or trey. And so how could they go ahead now and why are you better than the other 2 witnesses saying he's not, that he's a gazlan, that he's possible?
It's not even a suffix, because you cannot say I didn't see him. Some people say I saw him gazlan.
Right.
The other 2 can say no, he's not a gazlan. You didn't see.
I have, you want to say that.
This isn't just that.
But that's for sure, that's only adding fuel to the fire. That should make the question even bigger.
The question is big, but it's just not applicable.
Right. Now, if you're saying that they're contesting because there's a flaw in his family, meaning they testify that he's an Eved. Now, Eved is possible to be a dying, to say Eidus for sure, it's a kavachama from a woman. As the Gemara says about Kamak Pechasim and Alf, that an Eved is for sure less than that. If that's what they were contesting, saying this guy's an Eved, well then Gila Milsa Ma'amahu. So then that's just revealing a fact, and as Rashi explains, the Gemara's question is, so even if they signed already, why can't they testify in him? What type of suspicion is it that the Negeya Be'edus over here, but this thing they have to verify, and it's something that's going to end up coming out in the light of truth, that people are going to check until it comes out and is verified. And so therefore this Edus is not dependent on their Haggadah, it's just like revealing a fact, so why can't they do it even after they sign? So I don't understand, what's this that you're saying before they sign or after they sign? If it's era of Gazlan, it shouldn't help even before they sign. If it's era of Begam Mishpach, it should help even after they sign. So what's the case, Torah? Says the Gemara, truth tell you, era of Gazlan Nusa. We're talking about that the 2 people came to court and they're contesting, they're saying this guy's a Gazlan. And even so, he's going to be valid if the other 2 judges did not sign yet and they say no, he's not a Gazlan, because Bakami Hani, you know what the other 2 judges are saying? It's actually similar to like what you were asking, meaning he did Veheshav as Exela. Oh, so he did Veheshav as Exela, so that's not refuting, it's not trade. Trade would be, you guys saying he's a Gazlan, we're saying he's not a Gazlan. No, we agree that he was a Gazlan, but he did tshuva. Oh, they're not being refuted by the other witnesses who said he stole, and they're believed to say he did tshuva. That's what we're saying. That's only good before they signed. After they signed, then there's a Gebedava. Then they're just trying to cover their tracks. They don't want to look bad by having signed and been on the same court with this person. So that's why we'll help before the Chassima, but not after. So thank you to any time.
Rabbi, why?